Hey, I just want to make a quick video about adding a tip-out tray to the front of this cabinetry in front of the sink. I picked up a few of these soft close pivot hinges that I can add to each side behind this piece of cabinetry, and then I have a couple of these tip-out trays that I should be able to fasten on the backside there so that we have a tip-out tray here put sponges and other kinds of items in the sink. So we'll see if we can get up behind the sink here and fasten these on, and so it should be a pretty simple to install. So I've got the doors open here and I'm taking a look inside, and we have this piece, this cross piece of the cabinetry that actually blocks access. This is about 3 inches wide. So this is going to block access to getting in here and removing this front piece and getting our hinges on because of the sinks behind here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this piece, which will allow me access to this, and I can set everything up and then I can put this piece back in. Now this piece is nailed in from the outside of each piece of cabinet, so I won't be able to remove it by unscrewing it or anything like that. So what I'm going to do is I'll probably just get a tool and cut the nails out, and then I'll probably put some pocket screws back in. That way when I reinstall it, it has pocket screws, and if this ever needs to be removed in the future, I can just easily remove it with screws. So I'll grab my multi-tool and then we'll get to work on that. Okay, as you can see here, there were a couple of nails holding that in place. So I'll actually clean this piece up, probably take these off, these aren't in use any longer, and then I'll put a couple of pocket screws on each side. That way when we put this back in, it's an easy install. I'll probably throw a little stain on here too, just to cover that up under the cabinets. Okay, so I've just pulled this front panel off. There were some screws in here that were holding the front panel onto this cross piece, and so this cross piece actually I had to cut out just like I did with the other cross piece. I wasn't able to reach those screws back in there even with the tools I had, so I just cut this out, removed it from this front panel, and then we will be able to put the trays right on the back here, and then we should also be able to put our hinges in like we want to. And then I think what we'll do is we'll just reinstall this back up in here. And I might actually replace this piece of plywood just because it looks like it's getting kind of old and it doesn't look like it was cut very well. So we will place this back up in there, put our hinges on, put our trays on the back of the panel, put everything back together and see how it works. Okay, so I brought this top piece, this cross beam from the cabinetry down to the shop. This is the one that we cut out initially, and I've got my pocket hole guide on here, and so I'm just going to drill 2 holes in each end, and that way we can reinstall that easily. Looks like I was hitting that nail a little bit, but it went through just fine. So we got 1 pocket hole in. I'm going to put a couple more on here. So we got our 2 pocket holes there. Get a couple more on this side, and we should be good to go. Okay, let's get this back upstairs and we can get this installed. Okay, here's the piece we just put the pocket holes in, and so this kind of is fitting snugly in here, and all I need to do is fasten down the pocket screws. And I just used 1 1/4 inch pocket screws for these. This isn't any kind of support piece, it's really more just to cover the gap between the doors and the fold-out shelf that we have, so that should be plenty secure. Okay, I got this hinge out here, and what I'm going to do is just mark some places to do some pilot holes, and I'm going to get this as close as I can up to the edge here. That gives us more clearance for the bottom of the new fold-out shelf. And so I can just mark these here. And I think what I'll do is I'll just screw a couple of these in, get this fastened up, and then we'll test it out just to make sure, and then we can add the rest of the screws. Just one more screw in place, and then we can do 2 screws for the other side, and then we can mark for the actual shelf to come out, and then we will see if everything is working as planned. If so, then we can drill the rest of the holes and add the rest of the screws. If not, we can do some minor adjustments in case something isn't working exactly the way we planned. So that looks like that will work pretty well on that side, and then we'll go ahead and do the other side as well. Okay, we got the hinge installed on each side, and I just pulled them out. And then we'll just slide this piece under here, and then we can see exactly where we want to line this up. Now that we got that lined up, we can just mark the holes that we want. And now that we have those marked, we can drill our pilot holes. 2 down, 2 to go. I want to make sure you don't drill out the front side of the cabinetry too. So those holes don't need to be too deep, just enough to get the screws going. Now what we're going to do is pop a couple of these screws in and give it a test. If everything works the way we want, we can maybe pull this back off and then drill a few more pilot holes, put all the rest of the screws in, and clean everything up. Okay, I've popped these back in place. It's going to be hard to get the screws in from the top side because of this hole sticking out here, so I'm going to put these back in and try to go in from the back side and get a couple of screws in. Okay, they're not fully fastened, but we'll give it a test. Okay, just checking the spacing and everything, and I think that's about right where we want it, so I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of the screws in. So I'm going to actually take this off, fasten the hinges down, make sure everything's in place, and then I'll go ahead and use my hand drill, put everything back in there, and then I think what I'm going to need to do is put another piece back in here as well. Okay, so I've taken that panel back off of here. Just took a couple seconds. I always like to do a test fit first because sometimes there's things that you don't plan for or things don't fit exactly the way you expect. So I always like to do a little test fitting. Everything seemed to work out, so now I'm going to finish with the rest of the screws, make sure everything's fastened down. So drill a couple pilot holes and then screw things in. Okay, now that I've gotten both of these hinges fastened, all the screws in, everything's solid, I also went ahead and reinstalled this and I put some pocket screws in here, but no reason for you to see that. Pretty much same thing as this. Made some pocket screws, drilled them in, and this really isn't going to be visible either, only when this door is open. So now what I want to do is I want to actually put these fold-out trays on the back of this panel here. So what I want to make sure I do is that they're below this here. Now if I had taken this out, I could put these up a little higher, but I don't mind them being down here. So I'm going to do a little bit of a measurement here to make sure that I get that in the right part on the back, and then I will mark them out, do some pilot holes, and then screw them in. Okay, I've got these marked out right where I want them, and then I'm just going to go ahead and drill some pilot holes. Okay, so we got the two trays fitted on the back of the cabinet here, and then we'll just do a little test fitting to make sure everything fits the way we want it to. And it doesn't look like we're having any issues, so we're going to go ahead and fasten this on. Okay, I've just removed the trays from the back. It's a little bit difficult to see back there with the trays on, so I pulled those off. Nice thing is these just kind of slide in place, so we should be able to put these on after the fact pretty easily. Okay, I've got it fastened on from the underside. In retrospect, I probably should have either put this on later or taken this off before I put it on. It made it a little more difficult to get in there, but nonetheless, I did get it on there, and it does seem to be working exactly how I expected. So let's put the trays on and see how it looks. I've got the shelf fastened here. Everything's sturdy and everything's cleaned up, so everything turned out pretty much the way I expected. As you can see here, it folds out as it's supposed to. It's very sturdy. Got everything stored in here the way I like it, and then it's got that slow close function, which is really nice. So everything turned out just how I would have expected. This is pretty much a project that anybody can do, but every cabinet setup is a little different, so you just need to make sure that you take it step by step, do some test fitting, and improvise as you go. And this is a really nice shelf to have in the kitchen.